Hey, what up? I'm in this like Wes Anderson type hotel in Croatia, and this is the second time I've gone to Europe. So I'm 42, and I've only been to Europe twice, and both of the times have been in the last 6 months. And the first trip I took was to Lisbon, Portugal, and I went to Sintra, and I thought that was great. Honestly, it was a beautiful city. Had a great time. Croatia and Slovenia took about 14 hours to get here from DC. There's no direct flights out of DC. I think there's a couple, maybe from New York. But I ended up flying into Vienna and then taking another like hour long plane ride from Vienna to Zagreb. And that's where I'm at currently. And, I'm getting ready to go home tomorrow. I've been here for, it'll be 8 days tomorrow. And it just, there's going to be a lot of things that I miss about Europe. Um, Mainly just that everybody seems much more chill. Like when I think of going back home, I think of Walmart, right? Like we have these, super centers in America. And it's weird because Walmart's one of the largest companies. It was started in like middle of nowhere, Arkansas. And even to this day, like because Waltman, I guess is his name. I forget his name already. But anyway, he died, right? And his family, his daughters and sons and everything, they're still some of the richest people in the world because of this little store that he created in Arkansas that ended up growing into this humongous enterprise. And it's a miserable shopping experience. Like anytime I go to Walmart, but you save so much money, and if they have like grocery stores, which most of them do these days, like you can save tons of money on that. Um, and I think of that and I'm like, man, I don't miss that at all. And it's like, a lot of Americans like around DC or whatever, they'll be like, oh, I prefer shopping in Target. It's a better shopping experience than Walmart. And a lot of it is just like this American consumerism that is just totally not necessary. But, um, you know, not really trying to bash on it, but I would say that like when I think of going back home to the United States, I just think of this hustle bustle culture that doesn't seem to exist in Europe. And that's probably one of the most appealing things here. So, granted, I don't get my big, Starbucks coffee in the morning. Part of me misses that a little bit, but I prefer espresso anyway. Like, you get a little bit, everything's smaller sizes here. And there's something great to that, right? And then you go out to the restaurants and, like you can't ever get a check, but like the American in me is like, oh, I need, we're done eating. When is this check gonna come? And like almost like there's some anxiety like building up inside of me, like, oh, I got to keep moving, got to keep moving. Um, so yeah, I think the thought of going back to America is like there's just this hustle culture that is definitely exhausting. But being in Europe and spending a bunch of money, and really this place is not expensive at all. Like there's two Michelin starred restaurants downstairs, and I get like room service, and you can get like a humongous breakfast or lunch or dinner for my son and I for like less than 50 euros, and everything is very cheap. Where in the United States it would easily be over 100 in comparable food. But yeah, I just that hustle bustle culture though is also something that I think we take for granted in America as well. It's like if I walk around here, the music that I hear or the stores that I see, a lot of them are from the United States, and especially movies and just media in general, like Hollywood and all that. That is it seems to be a pretty unique American thing. So it's kind of interesting that I think a lot of people probably in Europe in some of these smaller villages and towns that I've visited probably have no idea that some of this stuff is American. But um, I try to understand, like in my mind, like well, how is that? Like, America gets a lot of bad rap, I guess. I mean, we fight politically between conservatives and Democrats, and but we're not fighting in the streets. And Croatia just had a civil war where they broke apart from the Yugoslavia, in 1991, and we're fighting until 95. And I look into that, and like Croatians fighting Serbians, and I try to make sense of that, and it doesn't really make sense to me, but it's something that just seems to happen throughout the course of history. And the United States had a major civil war back in the 1800s, but I guess relatively speaking, it's pretty good that we've gone now 160 years without completely disintegrating and fighting in the streets again. So I guess my point behind this video is like, when I look at the difference between like Europe and America, it seems totally different, and I can understand and respect both cultures quite well. Like in America, I'm very fortunate that I was able to learn how to become a programmer, get a job in the industry just through sheer hard work and effort, and probably some luck. And I've been able to go from growing up poor to now being able to travel the world. And I'm not trying to say I travel the world just because I've gone to Europe twice. I've actually been all over like the Caribbean islands and Mexico and Canada and most states, so like 45 different states. So I've seen most of the national parks and everything. And that is one thing I will say, that the United States definitely has a ton of natural beauty. So you can see the big city life, but you also have the white sandy beaches, the crystal clear water. You got the more grittier sand as you go up on the East Coast, or maybe the northern parts of California. But there's a lot of different subcultures, which is interesting. So the United States does have a very great deal of diversity, which is a humongous strength. And I think that's where actually a lot of this culture comes from. The entrepreneurial drive in America is like, it feels in some sense like it's like dwindling or dying. But if I really think about it, it's like, no, not really. Like, I mean, we look at like ChatGPT or the iPhone, the personal computer, like Atari, the video game company that kickstarted really like the video game consoles and what we have these days, and the automobile and Ford, and like the first in flight, and the space travel and SpaceX and Tesla and all these different companies. And a lot of this is like just American entrepreneurial drive, which it seems like everybody's capable of that. But like when your whole society is geared towards, let me make millions and billions of dollars, like it really does sort of transform everyday life, I suppose. And that's sort of where what I'm talking about in this video is like, when I go home, I'm not going to look forward to the Walmarts, like the Walmarts and some of the consumerism that does take place over there. And there also seems to be, like, I would say, like a complete lack of understanding. So I have personal friends that, when I tell them I'm going to Croatia and Slovenia, they think it's like, their thoughts of it are just completely wrong. And like nobody is even, it seems like, interested enough to even like do a quick Wikipedia search or something like that. So I would imagine that probably exists all over the place, and that's not uniquely American, but there may be a little bit more of that in America than other places. Some of the Uber drivers I've had, like, I mean, they know about, like, they're talking about NATO and wars and World War II and, United States involvement and all that. And I would say that probably a lot of people in America have no idea. They don't know about European conflicts or even American conflicts or any of that stuff. And some of that I think can be frustrating, right? So yeah, I guess when I sum this up is like, I will definitely miss certain aspects of Europe. In fact, a lot of it. And I could one day like see myself probably going to another country if I didn't have to rely on work. But one of the great things about America is like, there probably isn't a better place to be if you're looking to make millions and or billions. There's probably not a better country to do that. And then there's a lot of natural beauty in America, like I mentioned before. Like, so if you want to see deserts, or you want to go skiing, or mountains, you want to see bears and just subtropical climates, I mean, America pretty much has it all. But I will say that I went to this park in Croatia yesterday. It was called Plitvice National Park, and just walking around that, and they had these like wooden walkways, and it was all just natural feeling anyway. And it was probably one of the most beautiful places, maybe the most beautiful place I've ever seen. The weather was perfect, and it was also the perfect time of year because it's around Christmas, where there's not a whole lot of travel this time of year because typically there's more snow. And that is another thing, honestly, that I've heard about from several different people here. Croatia and Slovenia have their fair share of problems and things that they have to deal with as a country to provide opportunity for their people. But one of the common things that I've seen to have heard on this trip is like the changes in weather are affecting pretty much everything, and it's affecting this area. Like Zagreb and where I went yesterday, even Lake Bled in Slovenia. Normally that stuff is under snow this time of year, 7+ years ago, but now they're looking at like 7 years now where they're having less snow. They used to have a skiing competition in Zagreb that they had for the longest time, and it helped the local economy, and it was televised. And about 5 years ago they got rid of it because there was no snow, and the artificial snow machines just couldn't keep up with it. So I do find that to be concerning. Another thing, my tour guide basically is like, yeah, I think a year or two ago he was saying that there was basically a hurricane in the Zagreb area, which is completely unusual. And so I'm curious, like how it just makes me more aware of the fact that these things, like however you choose to believe the causes of them to be, when it comes to like the planet heating up and weather changing, it's certainly apparent in my lifetime that I've seen that myself. And just being in the DC area, there's a whole lot less snow. We didn't get any snow last year. I think there was one dusting, and I like snow. Normally we usually get at least 3 or 4 different snow periods where we'll get several inches on the ground, and it feels like for years now there just hasn't been much of anything. And then when it does happen, it's like a one-off occurrence. And then we've seen a lot more tornadoes too. Like I was in Richmond one day working, and there's tornadoes just like rolling through the area. And Virginia's gotten tornadoes and things, but anyway, it was big news in the area because Richmond's not a huge city, but like there was a warehouse that got taken out by one of the tornadoes, and it killed somebody. And it was just like, but little things like that, I would say, like there wasn't tornadoes growing up in Maryland, and we've had many, I would say, in the last like 10-15 years. It just seems like weather is definitely changing across the globe, and that should be concerning probably to everybody, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum. So yeah, all in all, I love this trip, and I do plan on getting back out to Europe, and I want to get out to Tokyo, and I'm very fortunate to be able to travel the way that I'm doing lately over the last 10-15 years, and a lot of that is directly attributable to being a software engineer, honestly. And I wish I would have been able to do that sooner, but that's not people's lot in life, and most of my family, probably most Americans, don't have that luxury. And the unfortunate thing, I think, is that no matter where you are, you probably take for granted things that you have. And a lot of times it's easier to just sort of give up and like write off everything versus like trying to make it a better place. So I don't want to get all mushy or anything like that. I'm not trying to do that. But when I go home, I plan to just simply be a little bit more cognizant of what we do have, what could be better, and try to be a little bit more positive, which is something I think I've worked on a lot in 2023. So that's really all I got here. This sort of a rambling video, and I hope everybody has a good day. Talk to you later. Bye.